This is Eric from the future. I was just editing the Holley Sniper video, and turns out I lost all of the footage from part 2. So I don't have any of that, but what I can do is give you a quick little run through of what I did do um, as far as the rest of the installation. So hooking up the fuel lines, hooking up the wiring for the fuel pump, and then tidying everything up. This is actually a year and a half later, and it's been pretty good. I haven't had too many miles on the truck yet, but overall it's been good and reliable. I've gone up in the mountains, done a little bit of wheeling, learned the limits of the stock suspension, so it's actually sitting a couple inches higher right now. That video should be coming out soon as well. And also I swapped out the exhaust. So a lot's changed, but I'll give you a quick little tour of what I did do, and let's get started. So under the hood is about the same that you saw before. I've got my wiring harness run through there up to the battery. I've got 2 connectors, one for the positive, one for the negative. I have the rest kind of running down the firewall under the brakes. I have the rest just kind of dangling right here. Those are for the cooling fans and I think for air conditioning. Not running air conditioning, and we'll get to that in a bit. Obviously there's like half an air conditioning unit here. I've got a condenser and an evaporator, but nothing else. So not running AC anytime soon. That little yellow wire you can see back there, that runs into, I believe that runs to the tachometer. Either runs from to the tachometer inside, or it runs from the ignition coil. I can't remember, but everything's labeled in the kit, so it's pretty easy to get at. Inside, I've got it running. You can see that red power line right there. That is the pin I found that is keyed on and off, but still stays live when you're cranking. That way the ECU can still have power and it doesn't kill it. Alright, most of the interesting stuff is going on right here. You can sort of see sneaking in there. I have the fuel pump mounted with its little P-clip to the skid plate on the gas tank, as well as the pre-filter. Then I have the post filter right there attached to a hose clamp with a screw through it to mount that. That goes off up to the front of the truck into the fuel feed. The return is that braided line. Picked that up off the old Amazon. Just some braided, braided AN line. Made up some fittings. Kind of have a loop right there. Not really the best, but I wanted to keep it a little long, and it's out of the way, so I'm not really too concerned. Initially, I had the fuel pump hanging kind of above the differential. You can sort of see right there. Let me get some light off. Had it hanging on the differential, and so basically, where's my hand? So I had it hanging off hanging from this guy and that guy, and it sat roughly just above the diff, right around in this area. The issue with that is the fuel pump sat a little bit higher than the level of the gas tank, and what they want you to do is have it as close to the tank as possible and below. So in my case, that meant bottom of the skid plate was the best spot. I'm going to probably make a second skid plate to cover that, just so I can protect it. if I did this again, I would have dropped the tank and done an in-tank pump, but that wasn't part of the standard kit. I wish I knew that, so learn from my mistake, buy the in-tank pump. They sell a whole tank for most vehicles. I think they do sell one for the Blazer, and they definitely sell drop-in pumps and universal fit guys, so I would do that. Anywho, the blue wire right here comes, I had it in some split loom, ran it down the frame rail, ran it up, down to the fuel pump, which is then grounded to one of the screws, I think, into the skid plate. And that pretty much concludes the tail end back here. I guess I should say I've got some nice little clamps you can see right there. Pick those up to just keep everything nice and tidy all along the rail. There is the fuel line running down the frame rail. Just ran some self-tappers in there and some P-clamps, and then those little separators, clamps, to hold them together. So that is about it. So another thing I forgot about the front, as far as throttle brackets go, I got the throttle bracket from Spectre. Picked it up at the local auto parts store. Can't remember which one. Basically, the stock one would have had to been severely modified, and then the aftermarket one that I ordered was basically only good for a carburetor, because this linkage right here sticks out just a little bit too much. So I got the Spectre one, which mounts off a single stud in the back and then has a little set screw to set the angle, and that's been pretty good so far. I also had some issues initially right after startup with it surging really bad, so I've got a fuel pressure gauge right there. That's there just for diagnostics, so I could better ask the right questions when I was on the phone with Holley. Basically, since I did this during COVID, I ended up being on the phone with Holley a lot, and the wait time was really long, but like over an hour and a half. But I got other stuff done while I was waiting for them, just stuff around the house, but I wouldn't blame them for that. But that brings me to a good point I wanted to mention about this guy. So that brings me to another point. When I started up, it was good. I went through the wizard and basically plugged in the things. You know, it's a stock camshaft, and other little tidbits that they're asking for you, what your idle speed is, what you want, or what you want to set your idle speed at, and a bunch of other things. And it was good. It ran, started first turn of the key, no issues there. It did its sort of thing where it kind of hunts and searches to figure out where that RPM is or how to get to that right RPM. Everything's read pretty good. The only issue was when I first had it, once it got up to temp, it would drive really erratically. It wouldn't idle. It didn't like to idle. It was surging really bad. Basically, it was I was foot on the brake, foot off the gas, sitting at a red light, and the engine's doing 2,000 RPM. It was just really weird, and it was like just surging like crazy. Didn't know what to do. Called Holley a few times. Took a while, and we thought it might have been fuel pressure was an issue. Could have been the map. Could have been a whole number of things. The pump was good. That wasn't the case. What ended up being the case was after I think I called twice and sent a couple emails. Someone finally had a good idea, which he asked me to what my AC ramp up was set to. Now, I'm not running air conditioning, so I didn't bother setting any of that. The trick is, if you don't know, if you're not running AC or anything, just set AC ramp up to 0. That fixed everything. Basically, what was going on is, I guess I probably should have maybe wired the wire for the AC switch to ground, which would have given it a solid 0, but because it was just kind of not touching anything, the computer didn't know what it was doing. So what that means is that basically, well, I guess I should say what AC ramp up is whenever you turn the AC on and the compressor kicks on, it revs the motor up a little bit. That way it doesn't kill the motor with the extra load. Now, this now the computer didn't know what it was doing. And so as a result, it was like, are you running AC? Are you not running AC? Are you running AC? Are you not running AC? So a couple times a second, it would freak out and just basically go up, 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 down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it was so bad that it actually, I would get off the brake and it would accelerate me through a intersection and then shift into second gear. That's how much speed it was getting. So basically the moral of the story is probably just set that down to 0 unless you're running air conditioning. If you are running air conditioning and you hook it up, it should probably run properly because it's got a known source. Or maybe tie it to ground. I don't know about that. I didn't try it yet. Mine's still just sitting in free space. But anywho, other than that, it's been good. It's been reliable, and I've really been a fan. So definitely recommend it. There might be others out there now, but it's pretty good. Anyway, sorry about the lack of real video. I wish I had the footage of me doing the rest of the install, but a lot can happen in a year and a half. So thanks for bearing with me, and we'll see you next time. Bye.